Hi, I'm Mark, producer of Roundtable, the TV series born here in New York City at the legendary Manhattan Neighborhood Network Studios. The exchange of ideas is important, and that is why we bring to you the following presentation. Please watch.
Good evening and welcome to Manhattan Neighborhood Network's Single Shot Show. Tonight we will be talking about phenomena that was existing for almost as long as photography exists. Photographers starting to work in movie production, and in order to discuss it we invited a great photographer who some years ago started to work in movie production, Fedya Zav. Hello Fedya, thank you very much for joining us tonight, and it's really exciting to discuss something that I barely had an opportunity to touch, the movie making. It's one of those areas of imagery production that has its special magic about it, especially for those who doesn't work with it. So let's start with talking about how you actually made the switch. What made a photographer to switch to movie making?
You know, that's an interesting question. Actually, maybe the interest to start creating like movies, motion more in a frame of still, like bring life to still photography. I was assisting in one small project as a grip, like I was doing lighting for the guys, and then I just decided I want to try it like with the camera, how it looks, how it feels, and it feels amazing. I don't know, I just fell in love with it, and since then I'm more in video.
So what felt amazing? What you found to be that alluring in making movies comparing to photography? I mean, I generally understand that a completely whole different world, but what attracted you?
Motion in the image, that you can bring all your stills to life now, and you can show amazing signals, like amazing contents with just a video.
Well, that's very interesting, because if you would think about it, actually the biggest difference in the mindset of photographer and person working with movie production is exactly that. Photographer has to focus on one particular moment, single it out.
Exactly. You have to capture right here, right now. You have to tell a story in just a single shot.
And you prefer to have a little bit
more
longer
time.
story. Well, it's a valid approach. So you was mentioning moving, as I understand, that's about dynamics of the shot, about creating dynamics. So I presume it's one of the things that actually the very different from photographic point of view. That's probably the biggest difference photographically between a still image and the movie.
Yes.
Creating dynamics of the composition.
Yes, that's totally correct. And like lighting's a little bit different than you're not working with strobes anymore. There was like a new for me to start working with more constant lighting instead of strobe lighting, because sometimes I don't have a pilot lights on my strobes, and you know, you just have to guess when it's fired, how it's fired, and you have more time to adjust it. In movie production, well, if you have a good budget and a good team, you have a gaffer team, which is like they take care of lighting, and you have a couple operators, and I prefer to do DP job, and right now I'm writing my own script, and I'm going to direct this movie, and hopefully it's going to be very success short.
Well, we'll definitely see it, and I'm pretty confident.
It was an amazing signal to the universe.
So let's go a little bit more into dynamics. So how the dynamic composition created, how it feels for somebody who was actually for a pretty long time concising the whole story in one still image, to work with the composition that constantly changing, and the lighting also, it probably in this sense is different as well, right?
No, like when you're shooting like movies, something like not which is journalist style, like when it's like run and gun, you have more time to move the lighting, you adjusting each shot individually. Yeah, it's not a big deal. With that, it's more time because you keep moving lighting, you keep moving like camera positions, but mostly it's almost the same thing as photography. Just instead of stills, you do motion now. For me, it was not like a lot of difference in dynamics or in anything new, like in composition. For example, now I can move a composition, like keep the composition but move the camera, like bring camera into the character and show with this move, like it's focusing more on this person, or move away from him the camera. With this move you can show like the viewer, like for example you need to like throw the character more back of the attention.
Oh, so basically you effectively starting to work with one more dimension.
Yes.
It's not only your composition, it's also how close to the subject you are.
Yes.
And that can be dynamically changing, and that's what I actually was referring to when I mentioned the lighting. Since your composition is constantly changing, you have to take into account those changes with creating the composition and filming it.
Yes.
When it's a still image, you just basically position the lights.
Yeah, you set up the lighting and you're just using this corner of what you prefer to use for photography. In cinema, you can move the camera, you can turn the room around a little bit. So that's a little bit more time and more work requires, and more team, of course.
Well, that's another thing that probably is very different, working with much larger crews. I mean,
of course,
very few photographers working with more than 1-2 assistants, no matter what they do. But in movie making, crews of less than 5 people almost non-existent.
If you're really on a budget, you can pull it up. All you need, like, basically a good sound guy. Lighting you can do yourself, and of course camera work you can do yourself if you don't have like any operators available, and you can direct as well. So it's basically you can have maybe 3-4 people with the crew, like small crews, like, but in best case scenario you need to have like each professional guy in like his field of creating.
Oh, that's actually all pretty exciting, but let's talk a little bit more about dynamics.
Okay.
So how exactly the story is created? I'm working very little with movies at the moment, so for me it's all new and exciting world, and I pride myself to know pretty well how the story is created in still shot. So when you was switching from one to another, how you was adjusting to this
you
process?
have much more pre-production work to do. You have to make a script, or you have to have like a guy who can write your script. Also you need to cast actors, it's very important. Also you need to plan the budget, also you need to plan schedules, also you need to play locations, and all that is taking like very long time. But I'm highly recommending people to do the pre-production work first, and very, very detailed, than to not like have mistakes when you're creating a production.
Well, that's probably one of the things that you have to learn hard way, switching from one industry to another, that this is all important. And again, I wouldn't say that it doesn't exist in photography. If you're talking about serious level studio photography, parts of this process are still there. You still need to make sure that location is fitting for the shot. You still need to make sure that the model is fitting the purpose, and a lot of other details as well, but definitely not the whole process. And again, you're not talking about just one
Well,
image.
the photography can be landscape photography when you don't need to like much cast models or like wardrobe artists. You know, basically, yeah, it's similar like to maybe high fashion photography when it's happening in the studio, and you need to know the clothes, the colors, the locations. Basically, yeah, almost same pre-production process. Instead of now you have a script and you're dealing with it.
Well, talking about a serious preparation, does improvisation exist in movie making? Because it sounds like everything is planned, calculated, and pre-created so thoroughly that there is not much room for basically doing something makeshift?
You know, that's a good one actually. Like, from my experience, I saw some interesting facts in my life. That interesting shots was created when the actor totally improvised, like right on a camera roll, and they kept it in the movie.
So basically forgetting the script and just doing what they have to do just to say.
Maybe it can
shot.
be something with a move, not necessarily with the script, because script they usually remember very good, but like the way how the actor move or what he do, that might be the game change.
Wow,
like for example, in the movie Batman, when the Joker tried to explode, like blow up the hospital, basically the button didn't work. And the explosion happened afterwards. So actor just like went with it and acted out, and it was like amazing because they have only one shot to like film the explosion.
Well, indeed, you can refilm something like this. Well, that actually is interesting. So, but talking about your experience, what happened in terms of improvisation?
Well, I was working on this movie Fake, and we were supposed to shoot on a beach. And what's happened, we scout location, everything was perfect. Now we have all crew there, a lot of equipment, gear, very hard makeup. The guy's supposed to be beat up, bleeding out. So the girl like was like, I don't know, spent like 30, 40 minutes on him and his makeup. And then we walked to this location. It was like, park was closed basically. You can't film on the shore.
Yeah.
Because the sun.
Hello, this is Alexei G from Single Shot with another single trick. Tonight I want to tell you a little bit about post-production. There is one feature in Photoshop and many other photo editing programs that being used scarcely. That's channels. And there is only one reason why it is so. Nobody understands what it is for. Well, not nobody, but a lot of people don't. So when you see an image just like this, you are getting in channel that. And that's very counterintuitive because you actually supposed to be seeing this. 3 separate sets of color, not of grayscale. So if you would think of each channel as specific color, for example, of red being red instead of grays, blue being blue instead of grays, and green likewise, you'll find channels very useful for editing. Alrighty, so we was talking about this shoot where the park was closed, where you was planning to shoot, and you had to improvise, I presume.
Yes, we have to improvise and find another location which is not far from this shore, and we did actually. I did scout and find this location, and we filmed in a totally different environment, which was even better for the movie.
Oh, that actually is super cool when you can pull something like this off. And when we was preparing for the show, you mentioned that there are a lot of things that people doing wrong in movie making, and when you was switching, you had to learn hard way what can be done wrong. So let's talk a little bit about that. What a person, especially coming from photography environment, can do wrong when they switch into movie making. What they can assume wrong, what can they take in the wrong direction.
Very technical question.
We have some pretty technical people watching the program.
Okay, so first thing is the most important is pre-production and scheduling. This is #1 priority. And location scouting. Yes. You have to know the location is 100% available and you can shoot in there. You need to understand all conditions. If you're shooting no budget movie and you don't have a permit and you're doing it quietly, you just need to make sure, so like when your actor is there and you there, they're like some guard not going to come up and say like, okay guys, I'm sorry, you can film here. So this all this like little parts you have to like scout first. You need to make sure 100% be sure in this location. Second, it's not knowing actors the points when they starting walking, where they walking, like the marks basically. So I faced that a lot because the production was like not really prepared for like serious stuff in the movie. Some of my projects I were as a DP, and like I thought we have a shot list and everything else, but like sometimes the guys just like start improvising right on the spot. Like, okay, I want an actor now walk not from there to there. Now I want him to work in from different mark places. And
sounds like the whole composition and the whole flow would be falling apart if you do something.
Of course,
like
of course. And if you were shooting on available lighting, that's can like break composition very crazy, because if you don't have like special lighting with you and you're relying on the street lighting or on the sunset hour, you need to make sure like that's exactly the side how you're doing it, where the camera are. So just you need to be there on location as well with a person who's like want this location. You have to go there with him and see that location yourself.
Well, the golden hour lighting is the issue that is very familiar to all the photographers. It's usually
I love that in the movie as well. I really love that in the movie, but the timing have to be perfect for golden hour.
Precisely, and you actually have to be lucky with the weather as well.
Of course.
A little bit of clouds at the wrong moment at the wrong place, and the whole thing is completely destroyed, or instead of a soft and nice light, you will get the harsh shadows.
Of course.
I'm pretty sure for movies it's even worse than for photography.
In movies you can use flags. Like basically it's really easy to make at home. If you have extra 2 people, they can just hold a sheet like from your bed, like a bed sheet, just like stretch it out and create a shadow to the actor. And when she's walking with her, just make sure like you don't see the shadow of that cloth on the ground. So no long shots.
That's one of those things that you wouldn't even imagine to be done if you don't actually walk in this particular area. Well, that is actually interesting, but another thing that probably could pose serious challenges to a photographer going into the motion pictures is adjusting their approach to models, in this case actors. In terms of model doesn't have to move in a specific way.
Yes.
In the end of the day, it's still a still shot. The actor, besides being able to look statically good, have to be able to move in a way that you expect.
Of course, this is why you shoot him same conversation from different angles, and then you just like post-product.
So that's probably also.
And then you just do post-production.
It's probably part of the casting as well, right?
Yes, that's what sometimes we have like a lot of takes, like just from one point. Then we need to change like the camera angle and do like lots of takes from the other point, and then from third point. So you need to have variety of one conversation with a lot of like different approaches with like a zoom, like is it an extreme close up, is it like medium close up, is it like far shot. So yeah.
So did you experience any of the surprises when the casting was done and some specific angle or some specific feature of the actor wasn't taken into account?
Oh yeah.
Do share.
Oh yeah. Well, I didn't own my own camera, so I was relying on these guys. They're supposed to bring some lenses and the equipment, and they didn't brought like couple lenses, which is was like very hard to shoot everything on one glass, and that was challenging actually.
I can imagine how challenging it is.
And there was like little bit mid zoom of like 65 or 85 millimeters, so it's extremely close lens, and I have to go so far away to make like a cowboy shot or something like that.
And
which is the environment was not like good for that lens. It was interior shots, and I was like struggling. Yeah, I was like struggling a lot. I was like struggling so much.
And not just 60 millimeter in interior, it also have to be following the actor. You actually have to capture motion.
I did it from the fire escape. I opened the window, went to the fire escape, and shot like across the room through the window on the fire escape, and that was terrific shot. It was a little bit window in it. It was like
I hope somebody took a picture of you making this shot, because that by itself sounds like a money shot right there. And another thing we actually didn't mention, which completely have nothing to do with still photography, is sound. You have to take in consideration the actor's voice, the actor's ability to articulate their manner of speech.
Sound, that the thing I actually have to learn from the scratch, honestly, because I never have experience with lavaliers or with a boom mics or with any other like audio gadgets, which is like sometimes it's not going directly to your camera, it's go like to recorder. And
But if I remember correctly, you actually had some previous experience with working with sound, not for movie making, but for music, so it probably was a little easier for you.
yes, it was, music is a little different, but like working with mics, it's a totally different thing. So mics was like very new in my life, and it was a cool experience to learn. And but I'm not focusing on it because like I'm not shooting for a boom guy in the movie career. But like it's good to know how to operate the sound as well, just for you.
Well, at least on the level of knowing the basics and the principle on which it's all organized. Yeah, it's always helpful. So, at what capacity you actually working in the movie world? We didn't start with that. Because there are so many roles you can play in movie production.
I tried from like pre-production to production, and a little bit have experience with the post-production. It was an interesting Studio DaVinci Resolve. When I opened it up, it took me like not that much time to figure it out how the whole things works.
Well, it sounds like a very interesting and nice to use software. But which one you liked out of those manual parts of movie production? I know that right now you're working in the capacity of actually producer and director. But from the manual parts, from basically operator's work, the sound engineer and post-production, which one is your favorite? Which one you find the most satisfying in a way?
I think I really love DP, director of photography, and just director of a whole entire shot, because I have this experience already talking to actors and direct actors, and they really understand me perfectly, and like everything's so easy, so flowy. Plus, I know how to explain to technical guys on this guy's language what to do, how like collaborate all together, you know. So basically, because you have a big team that you have to like make sure they work.
All right, so we'll get back to this thought after the break. Welcome to Single Trick and Single Shot. Today we're going to be talking about switching from digital to film. A lot of people do nowadays, and if you decided to do that, either just to try or as your conscious decision to switch altogether, there will be a lot of things you will need to learn and a lot of things you will need to change in the way you photograph. But there is one thing that is very important, and you will really have to know it in order to avoid major disappointments. In digital, as you probably know, if you take a photograph, you really have to make sure it's not overexposed. Otherwise, there is nothing you can do. In RAW, white is always white. You can't change it. In film, on the other hand, overexposed image can be corrected through development of the negative. But underexposure sometimes is completely fatal and final. So just make sure that you will change it underexposure for overexposure. Alright, so we're back. We have only a few minutes left, and there was one thought I wanted to share with you and see what you have to say about it. So when I'm thinking what would happen if I would make this move and I would be actually in charge of the production of something like this, something that probably would happen almost certainly, I would always miss the feeling of actually having the physical control over the camera, physical control of the shot. And do you?
Well, sometimes I'm just grabbing a camera from the operator and handheld it, like showing him how I want a camera be moved, and Also, I have the director viewfinder. It's amazing, useful tool. This thing is like so awesome. Basically, you have all lenses on your neck, and with any kind of like preview, which like space you're shooting at, so you can get like any corner and like preview which lens you want to use it from that corner.
God's lens kit, huh?
That's amazing thing. And like, yeah, for if you don't have this viewfinder beautiful thing, you can always grab the camera and like physically show the guy how you're going to do it, and then he can use it on a steady cam or whatever.
So basically, you're not actually shooting the scene, you're showing how it needs to be shot.
Well, you have to record so he see like how you went, and then he follow the same thing.
But
or you can just explain to him.
well, as I said, for me, the absence of this physical ability to press the shutter probably would be the thing I would miss the most.
I'm still
in this
photographing.
situation.
I'm still around.
No, I
I'm
know
still
that you
photographing.
didn't give up the photography, and does it, by the way, affect your photography? We didn't speak about that.
No, it's not. I'm still doing some small projects. Like I'm still doing some landscape photography, and I love it. I love having camera on my neck sometimes, or in my back.
So when you're making a still picture, do you miss the whole set of pictures that would be connected to it and actually make it dynamic now?
I have both, man. I'm not missing much because I'm there and there. And I also love to do like video recording as well. So sometimes I'm just grabbing the camera and doing it.
Well, let me put it this way. Some of the best artists in photographic world was actually doing exactly that. Stanley Kubrick, not to go any further, I mean, you can't get any deeper in movie making than him, and he yet made some amazing street photography right here in New York City.
Yeah, one of my favorite, by the way, directors.
I guess so
Kubrick.
much. It's indeed one of the best people in this world. Well, I guess our time ran out, so we still have so much to discuss, but we'll have to stop here. Probably we'll see you later on to talk about the movie when it would be actually already ready to be seen by the public. Thank you very much.
Will. Thank
It was
you.
a great enlightening experience. Thank you. Nice.
I hope you found that worth watching as much as I did. I'm Mark for Roundtable. Thanks for watching. See you next week.